Chapter 9 of Zhang Henshui's The Jinfan Family. The inscription on Fan Tunking, another nickname, praises elegance, and the book is written to wish a long life and a long life to comfort the loneliness. Mrs. Leng was amused that he was so impatient. At 9 o'clock in the evening, Qingqiu came back with 2 light blushes on his face. Mrs. Leng said, "Have you drank again?" Qingqiu said, "No." Mrs. Leng stretched out her hand to trim her hair and put the back of her hand against Qingqiu's face and said, "You said you didn't drink. Your face is so red. It's hot and your hands feel hot. If you don't believe it, feel it for yourself." As he said this, he held Qingqiu's hand and lifted it up and asked her to try the back of her hand on her face. Then he asked, with a smile, "How is it? Don't you feel that your face is already feverish?" Qingqiu said with a smile, "It's because the weather is hot and your face is feverish. How can you be drunk?" Qingqiu walked into the room, taking off clothes and looking in the mirror. "When I looked at my reflection in the mirror, wasn't my face a little flushed?" After putting on his clothes, he came out and said to Mrs. Leng, "Where's the heat? It stinks in the new house." Mrs. Leng said, "What kind of smell will happen in the new house?" Qingqiu pouted and said, "These male students, it's really not a thing. It's so ridiculous." Mrs. Leng said with a smile, "There are always things about the new house. Only ladies can stay in there and watch the fun. Girls, you should stay away." "Where are you?" Qingqiu said, "Where are you in the new house?" They started making a fuss in the auditorium, and some people looked at us even more. Mrs. Leng laughed. He said, "As female students, aren't you afraid of others looking at you? Why are you so afraid again?" Qingqiu said, "I'm afraid that you are not afraid of people. But their eyes are like nails, nailing them to others. How embarrassing it is." Mrs. Leng said, "Aren't the newlyweds going to invite some of your close friends the day after tomorrow? Are you going?" Qingqiu said, "I heard that a male guest was also invited, but I won't go. Mr. Gu brought it. I only copied a few pages of the Diamond Sutra and then threw it away. If he asked me to get up, what should I give to others? I wanted to copy it without going out for 3 or 4 days." Mrs. Leng said, "When you talked about copying scriptures, I remembered something. Jin Yanxi brought a very good fan and asked you to write for him." Qingqiu said, "Mom is the same. She can't keep anything in her stomach. Stay. I can write a few words, so why tell anyone?" Mrs. Leng said, "I told him." He saw the note on the wall and talked about it. "You can borrow any jewelry from him." Qingqiu said, "His words are obviously showing off that he has property, and he is looking down on us." Mrs. Leng said, with a smile, "You are wrong. I think he is quite amiable. He has never said anything about his family's wealth in front of me." Qingqiu said, "What kind of fan can you give me?" Mrs. Leng went to the room and put the Shangfei bamboo fan. "Take it out." Qingqiu opened it and saw the water interesting picture painted over there. It was a piece of grass and 2 or 3 fishing villages, painted in dark green. It was light and distant, and nearby was a thick reed, hiding half of the fishing boat. Qingqiu smiled and said, "This painting is really good. I am very happy. Tomorrow I will ask my uncle to ask him if the person who painted this fan is his friend. If he is his friend, ask that person to also draw one for us." Mrs. Leng said, "You haven't written for him yet, but you want him to give you a painting first." Qingqiu said, "I will write it for him first, and then I will tell him this when I return the fan to him tomorrow." The next day, Qingqiu got up early, wrote the fan, and gave it to Song Runking to send it over. Song Runking walked over there and saw dark green pearl curtains placed around Yanxi's bed. Under the tent, there is a pair of shoes, which are probably not up yet. On the table, there is a large table of invitations to treat guests. The date and place have been filled in. It is the 15th of this month, and Yanxi is here to treat guests. Next to the invitation, there was a list of guests. I peeked through it from beginning to end, but my name was not included. I thought to myself, this is very strange. I see him every day, and he entertains guests next door to my house. How could he miss my name? So he took out a cigar from the cigarette box on the table, struck a match and started smoking, then coughed twice. Yanxi turned over on the bed and saw him sitting at the table. He wanted to ignore him. Later, I saw that he was holding a folding fan in his hand, which belonged to his Zhangfei bamboo handle. It must have been written on it by Qingqiu. He quickly opened the curtain, walked out of bed, and said, "It's so early. When will Mr. Song come? I don't know at all. Song Runking said, we are used to getting up early. At this time, we have already done a lot of things. This fan was also written this morning. Look, Mr. Jin, how is it? Your writing skills are very weak, right? Yanxi took a look at the fan and found that it was indeed written. In small regular script, Su Dongpo's poem about traveling to Red Cliff is written, which matches the water interesting picture on the other side. Yanxi saw it and praised it a few times. Looking at the back, there is no upper mark, but the lower mark says Qingqiu Pavilion Master's Study Book. Yanxi said, this nickname is very generous. It is much more solemn than those romantic words. Song Runking said, it would be ridiculous for a young girl to call her the master of the building. 2 days ago, she was babbling. She used a piece of tiger skin paper with the words Qingqiu Pavilion written on it and pasted it on the door. Later, she said that it was an old teacher who studied Buddhism who taught her this. Can Miss Leng still write big characters? I will also get a piece of paper tomorrow and ask her to write one with me. Song Runking said, her big characters are just that. If Mr. Jin has anything to do, brother can help. When he said this, Yanxi couldn't say anything. It happened that Jin Rong had brought face wash water and went to wash his face and rinse his mouth. Song Runking felt embarrassed when he saw that he had nothing to say. He leaned on the table and flipped through the two books on the bed. Yanxi remembered the invitation on the table and said, Mr. Song, in 2 days, I will invite you to accompany me. Song Runking smiled and said, my brother invites mostly high-ranking people. How can I make friends with them? Yanxi said, that's too polite. Moreover, most of the people I invited were literary people, and they were definitely not figures active in the political circles. To be honest, I originally organized a poetry club, and that's why I made such a big splash outside. But since I moved here, there are many worldly matters involved here, and there has not been a single meeting. 2 days ago, my father asked me to hand over the results of this poetry club. What do you think I have to do to stop this? He said that he had taken the poem manuscript to the printing office and brought it to the next society class. In order to convince the old man, he also asked him to give me 2 topics, so I decided to give him a dinner, 2 seats. In the morning, we discussed the constitution of the poetry club. After lunch, we started to write poems. When it comes to poetry, this is another difficult problem. I can barely manage to make up 2 sentences of the 7 rhymes. I just can't do it. Song Runking rushed to say, it's not a problem. I can draft 2 poems with Mr. Jin. Just keep them in your mind and copy them out that day. She said, that's good. I forgot the title. I'll copy it out later and ask Mr. Song to write 2 songs for me first. After saying that, he hugged Song Runking and said with a smile, I have another reward. Song Runking said, it's just fun, but I have another small request. Yanxi said, unless it's really impossible, I can always help. Why do you say request? Song Runking smiled and said, actually, it's none of my business. It's just the painting on this fan. Someone really loves it. I understand that the person who painted it must be your friend, so you asked me to ask you to paint it for her. A small hall. Yanxi said, you didn't say it earlier. You said it. You don't need to write on this fan. Just let Miss Leng keep it. Song Runking said, a gentleman does not take away someone else's place. Okay, besides, you already have the money on it. How can you give it away? Yanxi said, no problem. I can definitely do it. I will send it over within 3 days. Song Runking said, that's okay. It's not something you're waiting for. It doesn't matter if it's 2 days late. Yanxi said, it doesn't matter. This one who can draw is a secretary from my father. I want it right away. I'll have it right away. The 3-day deadline is already very polite. Yanxi's temper was like this. He did whatever he said, and immediately called Yu Ziwen, who knew how to draw. Then Yu Ziwen answered the call from the young master and said that he wanted to paint, but he couldn't agree. After working all night, I gave the painting to Yanxi the next morning. Because Yanxi paid in installments, leaving the upper and lower payment unnecessary, so he didn't even put a stamp on it. However, Yanxi found another person who could write and filled in the upper and lower sections. The upper section was titled Qingqiu, the owner of Qingqiu Pavilion, and the lower section was written as a gift to layman Yin Ran. Because it was too late to mount the paper, a glass frame was provided. and the waiter was asked to deliver it the next day. This painting was specially commissioned by Yanxi. Yu Ziwen painted the clouds and water more and more misty waves, and it was very exquisite. Qingqiu was very happy when he saw it. Even the upper and lower inscriptions are quite generous, but the 4 characters Jushi Yanren are clearly the nickname of Yanxi. He signed the paintings painted by others. Isn't he sincerely trying to steal the beauty? Fortunately, it was a trivial matter, so I didn't pay attention to it. That afternoon, because Song Runking was not at home and his room, which was half a study and half a living room, wanted to be quieter, she took the white paper and copied the diamond sutra there. After searching for about an hour, I heard the door curtain snap. When I looked up, it was Yanxi who came in. Qingqiu put down his pen and stood up quickly. Yanxi nodded and asked, "Isn't Mr. Song at home?" After saying that, he turned around and left. Qingqiu said with a smile, "Please sit down." Yanxi said, "Don't delay Miss Leng's homework here." Qingqiu said with a smile, "What kind of homework is it?" "It's just copying a few scriptures for others." They faced each other through the window. Someone shouted from outside, "Mom Han, please come, madam, Mr. Jin is here." Yanxi was used to mixing in male and female social circles, and rarely did anything to avoid suspicion towards women. However, it is really difficult to deal with a woman like Qingqiu, who is neither new nor old and has a no-no attitude. She was about to leave after saying a few words, but now Qingqiu invited her mother to come out to accompany the guests. This was again an attempt to persuade her to stay, so she simply sat down. Mrs. Leng happened to have something to do in the room, and she hadn't come out yet. Qingqiu was with her for the time being. At a loss for words, Qingqiu said first, "Thank you, Mr. Jin, for sending me that painting." Yanxi said, "It's not worth anything. If Miss Leng wants this kind of painting, I can do all 10 of them." "We can do it," Qingqiu said with a smile. "Okay, how can I put these paintings in such a small house?" Yanxi looked at the scriptures on the table while talking, said, "Miss Leng's small regular script is really good, although Miss Leng's large pen wrote a fan for me. It's a pity that it can't be mounted and hung. Miss Leng is free, please write a few words as you like." Qingqiu said, "I have never dared to write anything for others. This time, because my mother said that Mr. Jin is an acquaintance, he can be forgiven for bad writing, so I reluctantly scrawled a few words. I really wanted to frame them as displays. That's a joke." As she said this, she turned sideways towards Yanxi and stroked the 5 fingers of her left hand with her right thumb and index finger. His eyes were looking at the white and red fingernails, but he didn't look directly at Yanxi. She was wearing a used white tulle gown with blue flowers printed on it. It was clean and smart. Yanxi thought of 2 poems like this. The clothes are light and the waist is neat, and the words are lost in silence. It looks good now. It's a pity that Qingqiu is more open-minded than her and not as gentle as her. She was pitiful and cuter than Qingqiu, and not very open-minded. There was absolutely no hope of dancing with her. Qingqiu saw Yanxi sitting there in a daze and didn't know what it meant. He coughed twice first, then turned around and called to Han's mother. "Han's mother, come and pour tea too." Yanxi smiled and said, "No need to be polite. I don't come here 3 times a day, but I come here twice, which is almost the same as at home. If you are polite, you can't be too polite." Qingqiu said with a smile, "And our uncle doesn't know how to come. How many times have we been there?" Yanxi said, "That's why we don't have to be polite to each other." Qingqiu smiled lightly, as if she acknowledged what he said. After having nothing to say, she lowered her head and stroked her fingers. Yanxi said, "Miss Leng, have you been to Longevity Mountain once in the past month or so?" Qingqiu replied casually, "Yes, I have been there once." After saying this, he suddenly thought, "I'm here. I've been to Wanshu Mountain once. How do you know?" So he glanced at Yanxi's face as if he was confused. Yanxi understood and smiled. "I also went shopping that day. I saw many students from your school riding in a large group of cars on the road." "Miss Leng, weren't you in the 3rd car?" Qingqiu thought about it. "Weird, you didn't recognize me at that time. How did you know it was me?" But it was hard to say this, so he said, "Oh, Mr. Jin also went shopping that day." Then he smiled and said, "Mr. Jin has a good memory and remembers it very clearly." Yanxi said, "This time I visited. It's very interesting, so I still remember it." Qingqiu thought about it carefully and realized that day, there was a fashionable young man riding a horse on the road with a few servants. It was probably him. Qingqiu thought like this, and from this he speculated on Yanxi's recent actions, and felt that he was doing everything on purpose. Looking up, I saw that he was wearing a white chuluo gown and a sleek Western-style parting of his hair. He was indeed a handsome man. At this moment, my face actually felt warm, and I lowered my head despite it. Yanxi felt that she had nothing to say again, so she stood at the table and read the Diamond Sutra. She said hello for a while, and then said, "Miss Leng, give me this sutra you wrote." "Okay?" Qingqiu asked, "Is Mr. Jin interested in Buddhism?" Yanxi smiled and said, "This is superstition. What are we young people doing? Isn't it killing our ambitions?" "I think so too. This is what my old mother did. How can we do this?" "But we have an old teacher who always says yes and teaches me to write a scripture over and over again, but I really don't want to write it. Mr. Jin doesn't study Buddhism, so why should he copy the scriptures?" Yanxi said with a smile, "It's really good. I want to have it framed and hung in the study. You wrote a fan, and now you want this sutra. It's so unsatisfactory." Before Qingqiu could reply, someone suddenly said from behind, "Qingqiu, just take the money-giving gentleman. You can get another copy. What's it worth?" When he looked back, it turned out to be Mrs. Leng who had come in. Yanxi said, "Look, Aunt Leng, I'm making trouble again. You said you want them all, but that's too troublesome. Just write me one or two." Qingqiu said, "That won't be a format. If Mr. Jin really wants it, I'll write a small banner carefully and send it as a gift." Yanxi smiled and said, "That's even better." "That's what I can't say." Mrs. Leng said, "What's it worth? In the future, during the summer vacation, I will just write 10 or 8 sheets. I will have plenty of time." The reason why she said this was because Yanxi sent to many things, and she was always worried that she would have nothing to repay. Now that people are willing to ask for a letter, they can use it to fulfill their wish. Qingqiu is also like this, she thought, and she wanted to push it a step further, thinking that seeing his situation, he admired me very much. Otherwise, if it was out of casualness, why would he give me something again and again? I always keep it like this, and in my heart. It's also a bit dissatisfying. Now that he wants to use the words to paper, I'm afraid there are other meanings besides the quality of the words. I won't ask him about this, as long as I can do it. It's a small favor. And she agreed. She thought this way, so that afternoon, she went to the street in person, bought a piece of silk, and neatly wrote a horizontal stripe of Yuxin's Spring Fu. Behind it is the inscription, Yan Ran, a layman, Yazing, master of the Qingqiu Pavilion. On a clear day of a certain year, I have read Yuzishan Spring Ode, written in regular script at the bottom of the jujube flower curtain, beside the ripe tea and the fragrance of the tea. The glass shelf was given to Yanxi. Yuxin's Spring Ode was originally very beautiful, but with the characters Qingqiu in the hairpin pattern, it was really a dilemma. The silk was originally very thin, and Qingqiu was underneath. Held up a large red damask, reflected through the glass. It was the red color of flying clouds, very beautiful. Yanxi got it and was very happy. His joy did not lie in this word. He thought to himself that he had never seen Qingqiu express such sincerity to him. From this point of view, it cannot be said that she is absolutely uninteresting to me. At this time, you should write a letter to her privately, to express your gratitude. Say some words of admiration, and then see how she responds. The letter is afraid of being lost, so it is best to send her a poem. Unfortunately, my poem cannot be written. I had no choice but to start by writing letters. Cough. Don't talk about writing letters. I haven't written one for almost half a month. Besides, like Miss Wooer and Miss Kia, all you need to do is dip a pen in red ink and use a good Western-style letterhead to write a few sentences in vernacular. It would be inappropriate for her to use this method. I also made some plans for this matter a few days ago. I bought several Fenking rulers and Zhangjian rulers and checked them carefully. However, although there are many good-looking words, there are almost none that can be used in the entire article. When it comes to looking for chapters and excerpting sentences, let's make it into an article. Of those words, 8 out of 10 sentences are allusions. I am not sure whether they can be used or not, and I really don't dare to do it. So I hesitated for a long time, still not deciding on a solution. Then I thought about it. It's been a long time, and there's nothing going on anyway, so I'll slowly make up an article and give it a try. With this thought in mind, he lowered the door curtain. Put several rulers and a simology together on the table. First, copy the sentences to make a draft, and then write the sentences that you don't understand very well into the simology sentence by sentence. It found its mother's house, and when it was time to turn on the lights in the morning, it actually didn't go out. The few waiters who were serving him were quite surprised. I thought to myself, I have never seen our seventh master work so hard. Could it be that his Jin family is about to have a good fortune? Everyone came to his door quietly, not daring to go in unless Yanxi rang the bell. Yanxi was inside, and he could only do it like this. He just checked simology dozens of times, and his head was dizzy. After stretching and saying ouch, he felt more comfortable. Then he stood up and walked out of the yard to breathe in the fresh air. When he was satisfied, he couldn't help but walk to the front door of Leng's house. I saw an old woman carrying 2 flat paper boxes in her hands. The electric lights from Yanxi had already been installed at the gate. Under the light, I saw a piece of red paper with the Chinese character longevity cut on it. When Yanxi saw it, his heart suddenly moved, and he wondered who in his family would give such a birthday gift. He stood at the door for a while, waiting for the person who gave the gift to come out. After a while, he came out as expected, but Mother Han followed behind and closed the door. Yanxi smiled and said, "This gift giver is so late." When he said this, he originally meant that it was late, but Han Ma misunderstood the meaning. He smiled and said, "That's why I couldn't wait until tomorrow and send it to you." Yanxi said, "Who is giving the gift?" Mother Han said, "It's Miss Mai, or the bride." Yanxi said, "He's your lady's classmate, right?" Mother Han said, "How did you know?" Yanxi said, "Didn't your lady go to the wedding banquet in just 2 days?" Mother Han said, "By the way, and it's best for our lady to be a bride. Maybe she will come in person tomorrow." Yanxi said, "Tomorrow is Miss Leng's birthday. You should have something to eat." Mother Han said with a smile, "Master Jin, our lady will come tomorrow. How do you know about your birthday?" Yanxi said, "I already knew it. Your uncle told me. My gift will not be given until my birthday." Mother Han said, "Don't be too polite. It's because our wife was afraid of letting you know and causing trouble, so she kept it secret. If you want to be too polite," our wife said, "it was because of my blunder." Yanxi said, "Aren't your words still stable? If I hadn't said it, you would never admit it in your life." After saying that, he went home with a smile. When he received this news, it was like meeting Guanyin, who came to rescue people in need and saved him from the siege. Now, when he wanted to write a letter, he didn't have to worry about running out of topics. I thought for a while, since it was her birthday, I had to give her the most appropriate thing. According to me, what she envies most now is probably the pearl necklace. I will get up early tomorrow and go to Wushwang's store to buy a necklace for her. I still had 2,000 yuan saved, so I spent 1,500 to 600 yuans to buy a bunch of medium quality ones for her. But won't people become suspicious of such a heavy gift and refuse to accept it? Probably not. Once she doesn't accept it, it doesn't matter if I return to the foreign store. Fortunately, I'm a regular customer, so it won't be a problem. In any case, she just thinks the courtesy is more important. Can she still say that I am not? The idea has been decided, and this is how to do it. After checking the amorous letter again, there happened to be 2 articles to congratulate the woman on her birthday and to send pearls. The 2 articles were put together into one very suitable letter. At this time, all the hard work spent during the day was finally in vain. I took the draft in my hand and rubbed it into a ball, and threw it into the wastebasket. So I spread out the Zhangjian rulers and Fengking rulers again, and pondered over the 2 I selected for a while. One went to the first half, and the other went to the second half. It might work if I add a few words and change it a little, so I'll write down the draft first. The letter is, Miss Qingqiu's Yajian, a curtain of auspicious air, a blue bird comes. I know that the time when the fairy peaches are ripening coincides with the blooming of the jade trees. It suddenly dawned on me that the lanterns last night and the magpies rejoicing today are not for no reason. The lady is in her prime and beautiful years, and her orchid is wise, so she is the predecessor of the bright moon, and she is young and not old. Yancheng looks at King Fan, and is deeply attracted to her. How can I not express my blessings today and tomorrow? Then there are the little things in Lianzhu, the remaining treasures at the bottom of the spring, which I have tasted in my own collection, but have not been loved. Now I would like to imitate the enthusiasm of gifting the sword, and use it as an ode to Nanshan. I dare to invite you to take pity on my palm, compare it with the cold light, and use it to record the events, so that I can be enlightened. I write a letter to express my congratulations and wish you wisdom from afar. Jin Yanxi paused and read it over and over again, and thought it was okay. The poem Ode to Nanshan in the letter was originally intended as repayment for the favor. You know this. This sentence is found in ordinary letters and is not used to celebrate birthdays. Therefore, I changed it by referring to the other paragraph on the ruler. There is no need to express blessings, but there are two words in the next part, which are to haves. When they are combined, I feel that they are very suitable and seamless. I read it once and read it again. I was very proud of it. So I took the letter paper and started writing it. Yanxi stayed up half the night to finish writing the letter. The next morning, I took a car to Us Matheson and bought a beaded hoop. If nothing else, the box containing the beads is particularly beautiful. The box is rectangular and made of dark green velvet, with a paste-like exterior and lace inlaid with rhinestones around it. Inside the box are purple forges and white beads, which look very nice when placed on them. Moreover, the box had already been filled with essence. When he opened the lid of the box, a burst of aroma hit his face. Yanxi was very satisfied with the purchase. He immediately paid Jin Rong and secretly called Mother Han. First, he took out $2 from the drawer, handed it to her, and said, "This is for you, just take it." Mother Han stretched out her right hand to catch the money. She scratched her eyes with her left hand, and said with a smile, "No, Master Jin. I'm spending your money again." Yanxi said, "Just take it. Since I gave it to you, I won't take it back." Mother Han turned her body, squatting down for a while. She said with a smile, "Thank you." Yanxi handed the box to her first and said, "Give this to your wife. You said today is my birthday, and I don't have time to buy anything, so I just came a bunch of beads. They were given to me by foreign merchants over and over again. They cannot be returned. Please accept them, Mrs. Han." Yanxi took out another letter from her body and said with an extra serious face, "This letter is for the birthday of your eldest lady. Please give it to her." Mother Han agreed, and then he said thank you and turned to leave. Yanxi called her back again and said with a smile, "Don't take this letter out in front of your wife." Han's mother also smiled and said, "I know." She took the bead circle home, and I showed it to Mrs. Leng and said it was a birthday gift from Master Jin to our young lady. This was bought specially by someone, so naturally we have to take it. When Mrs. Leng brought the box over, she knew it was a valuable thing. When she opened the box, she saw a string of beads inside, and she screamed loudly, "Ouch!" Then he asked, "Did Master Jin give this to you?" Mother Han said, "Yes." Mrs. Leng said, "Then how can we accept such a heavy gift? We have to return it." Mom said, "Since they have given it to me, why can I return it? Isn't it a loss of face for them? I don't care about sending it." Mrs. Leng said, "You don't know the importance of what you say. Guess, these beads are worth it. How much is it?" Mother Han said, "How much is it worth? Is it worth as much as gold?" Mrs. Leng said, $10 or more. Is it worth that much? Mrs. Leng said, "No. What kind of relationship do we have with others? You can just send it back for me." When Mom thought about it, she accepted to yuan from someone first. If she sent it back and the errand was not completed, there would be no hope for the second time. Then he said, "This thing is too valuable. I don't dare to take it. If I accidentally drop it and smash it on the ground, I won't be able to afford the compensation if I tear the old bones apart." They were talking here, and Qingqiu came out. Mrs. Leng handed her the box and said, "Look, it's not bad to give us such a big gift." Qingqiu took the box and saw that it was a string of beads, which was also, my heart skipped a beat. She pinched the beads with 2 fingers, first hung them on her wrist to look at them, then hung them around her neck again, took a look in the mirror, and then said to Mrs. Leng, "These beads are really good. I'm afraid they are better than Miss Mai." "That one is even better." Mrs. Leng said, "Of course it's better. I picked it from a foreign store." Qingqiu took off the beads, slowly put them in the box, held the box in his hand, and looked at it again. "Take a look." Mrs. Leng couldn't bear to see her love her. Seeing that it was her birthday, she couldn't bear to displease her. She didn't say accept it or return it. Qingqiu then placed the velvet box on the pillow table. At this time, Han Ma followed Qingqiu in and slowly placed the letter beside the box. Said, "When Master Jin sent this thing, there was also a letter." Qingqiu's heart skipped a beat after hearing this. I thought to myself, he and I are separated by a wall, and we can see each other often. What letter should I write? He said. Oh, is there another letter? Let me see it. As he said that, he opened the letter calmly, took the letter and looked at it from the beginning, raised his hands, and said, nothing, just asking us to take it. Have you read the letter to your wife? Mother Han said. No. Qingqiu said, don't tell her. She has this temper. The more she asks her to accept it, the more she won't accept it. Yes. I love these beads so much that I can't bear to return them. Mother Han said, yes, I think so too. We don't have the money to buy them, so we'll just accept them. Qingqiu waited for Mother Han to leave, closed the door, slept on the bed, hid in the tent, took out the letter from his pocket, and read it again. Alright, this part of the story ends here.
Want to know what happened next? Let's listen to the breakdown next time.